In part 1, we followed the pattern of forbidden knowledge. In part 2, we watched the flood reset, where justice looked a lot like erasure. Tonight, we step into what comes after the reset. Because after the flood, the gods don't get softer, they get political. And this is where Greek mythology stops feeling like fantasy and starts feeling like something closer to sociology. Not because the stories are identical, but because the mechanics of power rhyme. We're talking about divine politics, jealousy, loyalty, worship, and that one word that shows up like a chain around the ankle: serve. Let's start with Greece. On Olympus, everyone knows what's going on. Zeus is king. The gods are a family. There's hierarchy, favoritism, grudges, alliances, betrayals. There's a throne, and there are consequences for crossing it. Hera is jealous, not metaphorically, openly. Poseidon competes with Zeus. Athena and Ares embody different philosophies of conflict. Aphrodite can start wars with desire, and humans live under the weather of divine moods. The Greeks never pretended the gods are pure. They're powerful, they're eternal, they're magnificent, but they're also petty, political, emotional, sometimes cruel. It's all out in the open. Now pivot to the Bible and you might expect a totally different vibe. A higher moral plane. A God beyond rivalry and insecurity. But then you hit a certain kind of language. Worship me, serve me, fear me, have no other gods before me. I am a jealous God. And if you're paying attention, you notice something. The Bible often frames God as the opposite of the Greek gods, but sometimes speaks in the tone of a king demanding loyalty, which raises an uncomfortable question. Is this the voice of divine love, or the voice of empire wearing a halo? Now, to be fair, people interpret this in different ways, and we're going to lay the options out without forcing a conclusion. One interpretation is that jealousy means covenant loyalty, like an exclusive relationship, like a marriage contract. You're mine, I'm yours, and betrayal destroys the bond. In that reading, the no other gods isn't insecurity, it's fidelity. But there's another reading. Insecurity doesn't always look like weakness. Sometimes insecurity looks like domination. Sometimes it looks like I love you, but don't look anywhere else. Sometimes it looks like I'm the only source of truth. Sometimes it looks like if you question me, you're in danger. And if you've ever dealt with a controlling person, you know the pattern. The tighter the grip, the more they call it love. So here's the think tank question. If a being is truly ultimate, why does it need loyalty language at all? Why would the highest reality need praise? Need worship? Need constant recognition? Now, defenders often say something like, God doesn't need worship, humans do. Worship aligns the human heart to what is good, and that's a solid argument on paper. But the follow-up is unavoidable. If worship is for our benefit, why is it enforced with threats? Why is fear part of the package? Because this is where the conversation stops being theology and starts being psychology. Fear creates compliance. Fear creates conformity. Fear creates quiet. And quiet is extremely useful to anyone who wants to keep power unchallenged. Now let's widen the lens. In Greek mythology, there are many gods. Everyone admits it. The power struggle is visible. Humans are collateral. In the Bible, especially in the later theological reading, God is one, ultimate, above all, but the language in some passages still sounds like divine rivalry. No other gods before me isn't the same as no other gods exist. It's a loyalty command, and loyalty commands imply competition. So what is it? Is the text acknowledging other powers people believed in? Is it describing a divine council world where a high god demands exclusive allegiance? Or is it simply human politics being projected upward, like a king saying, "No other kings in my territory"? Again, we're not giving you the answer, we're showing you the fork, because whichever way you read it, the effect is the same. A system is built where questioning becomes dangerous, and this is where a lot of people's real-life experience with religion becomes relevant. When you question the story, you're not met with evidence. You're met with a diagnosis. You don't have faith. You don't have the spirit. The devil is using you. Be careful, you'll pay for it later. That's not a debate. That's a threat. And threats have a purpose. They stop the mind from moving. Now let's do our courtroom segment again, because part 3 is basically begging for it. Put worship on the stand. If worship is alignment to the good, then it should be freely chosen. So why demand it? Why frame it as service? Why build an identity where human beings are described primarily as servants? And why does the divine voice in some passages sound like this? I want you to love me. And if you don't, there will be consequences, because love that requires consequences is not love. It's coercion. Now, some will say, no, those consequences are just separation. God is letting you choose. Okay, but then the question becomes, is it truly a choice if the penalty is infinite? Is it truly love if fear is the main motivator? Now bring Olympus back into the frame. Greek myths are honest about the gods being political. The Bible often claims a higher moral ground, yet sometimes uses the same loyalty technology: fear, exclusivity, punishment, obedience. So the pattern we're tracking tonight isn't Greek gods equals biblical God. The pattern is this: when power speaks, it often demands loyalty. When loyalty is demanded, knowledge becomes suspicious. When knowledge becomes suspicious, fear becomes the tool. And when fear becomes the tool, love becomes a marketing term. So here's the question we'll leave you with. If divinity is real, would it need to sound like a dictator? Or would it sound like a light you can move toward freely? Because the difference between devotion and control is simple. Love invites, control demands. The next episode is where this gets personal. Because across cultures, the figure who brings fire, truth, or freedom often gets labeled dangerous and then eliminated. In part 4, we're looking at the liberator pattern and the scapegoat machine. Why do systems kill awakeners, then call it righteousness? That's next in Parallel Pantheons Part 4.